Monday, 3:43 p.m., September the 13th, 1976, Tinker Mountain Motel, Roanoke, Virginia. Dr. Reams continued Session 2, Cause and Effects, Theory of Ionization. A copy of this tape may be had by requesting tape number 4-976-2.
Giveaway. Only that which you give away can you keep forever, throughout eternity. Some folks have their hands closed so tightly, hanging on to what they have, until the Lord can't put a blessing in it. You've got to open your hands to receive a blessing. So don't ever get that tight. If you do, you'll get tighter and tighter until you're tied up sometime. The girls told me to make this announcement that they're serving you in the dining room. And if we don't remember to give them a little tip, we might be serving ourselves by Wednesday. Oh, yes, they get paid, but they live for that tip. The getting paid don't count. It's the tip that counts. That shows you how well you like them. If you don't tip them, they think you don't like them. I found this. I don't know whether if you'll try this and see if it works. The poorer the service, the larger the tip.
It really works.
It does work. You get better service because she gets a big tip this time, and believe me, you get tip-top service the next time. Now, if you just one time in a place, that may be different. But I found the person that's doing the worst needs the most encouragement. And I'm not saying not to reward those who do good, do well. But I was having dinner in a certain city, and they were bringing me a bowl of soup, and I was dressed very nicely, not too good. But the bowl of soup slipped and landed right in my lap, bottom upward. The girl was terribly embarrassed, but I just simply said to her, I don't know anybody else in the world that I would prefer to dump a bowl of soup in my lap rather than you. And I said, if this hadn't have happened, I would have forgotten you, but since this has happened, I'll remember you the rest of my life. So I hope we can be friends, on and on and on. I'm not angry, are you? She said, I'm embarrassed. I said, well, we've had a bad start, maybe we'll have a wonderful ending. So she hated it the worst in the world, and if I had fussed and scolded her, it would have only made things worse. And she would have hated me as long as she lived, but I expect she remembers me also. Kind of reminds me of an incident that happened to a colored man that used to work for me, well, this was before World War II, and I often talked to him about his soul and so forth. And he didn't pay too much attention to it, but after we landed on the Isle of Madang, we were marching from one area to another, getting ready to making a beachhead on Luzon. And there came this company of colored boys by. Well, this colored man who had worked for me said, hello, Dr. Reams. He said, hello. He said, you told me one time that I was going straight to hell, and how right you were. You know, our words live on and our actions live on. So we need to learn to be kind under every situation and show gratefulness in whatever method is best suited for the time. Also, we are having a few complaints about what we charge for instruments, or what is charged for instruments. Occasionally you'll find a stray one here, yonder, there that some merchant's bought, and he can't sell it, and he finally keeps marking the price down, down, down. You go to buying them by 100 now and see what happens. You're going to run into trouble that you didn't know it could exist. For instance, the cost of our instruments and the cost of the amount of time that it takes it from one class to the other, you can't imagine the amount of hundreds of dollars worth of telephone calls it takes, the 2 or 3 employees full time that it takes to get these instruments in time for a class and to get them together. You cannot sell anything what you pay for it and still make a profit. I do not know yet on the first classes whether we've made any profit or not, because of the amount of time that it takes to get the instruments, and also the instruments that come that do not meet the standards, that have to be tested and sent back. One shipment, we got a set of instruments that hardly any 2 of them were like, and still I don't think all of those have been corrected yet. But when you get into buying laboratory instruments, you're into really something. And if you can find instruments any more economically that work, and each of you are told what to do, we would be delighted for you to buy your instruments and come to the classes with them, even on the first course. But we tie up, just for instance, we just tied up $33,000 for solar bridges for the November course. And it'll be another 6 or 8 weeks before we get that back. Well, that's money that you should receive some interest on, a little bit. But in order to keep a business going, every division has to pay something. But on the small markup on instruments is different from what you'll see in a catalog price. For instance, we've got a catalog price on refractometers that it was $200 and some odd dollars, but today those same refractometers are over $500. So just because you see it listed in some catalog is not any sign at all that you can buy it. Also, there's certain refractometers and instruments that cloud up after about a year, and they're not good. So there's never been anyone that has not manufactured something good that somebody else didn't counterfeit and try to sell it cheaper. So we're trying to give you instruments that are good and work and to give you a satisfactory reading. However, in another course or 2, we're going to have a choice on instruments of a much higher caliber but at a much greater cost. That you may have a choice of trading yours in on these new instruments or keeping the ones you've got. But we have tried to get one that was satisfactory and one that would work. And naturally, when we're handling them, moving them, storing them, there's just a lot of cost attached to it. And on chemical things, there's not very much discount in buying in great amounts. That is, from the local companies in this country. There's not very much mark-off, but we are trying to eliminate some of this to the best of our ability. Also, the little bit of markup is also accounted for in the price of the course. If it wasn't for the possible markup, then we'd have to charge more for the course, because we've got the lights, the motel, the personnel that it takes to move here, to carry on the course. All of this is a part of it. So just the price of one instrument is no criterion over the whole thing that you're getting. So what I'm trying to say is, we've tried to keep it as economical as we could, but you're getting a lot for each dollar you spend. Also, we get a lot of complaints about vitamins and minerals, the price on them. You get what you pay for. For instance, after about 6 months or a year, you're going to find that their numbers are still nowhere near right, because they went out and bought something cheap and expected to get results. Went out and bought something cheap. You'll get what you pay for. For instance, they'll go out and buy the cheapest food they can buy, and yet when they buy a car, they buy the finest one they can afford. It don't make sense. And then they wouldn't think about putting anything but the finest grade of $1.25 oil per quart in their car, and yet they want to put a vitamin that's cheap in their system. Just can't wait to get to the cemetery. Just can't wait, or mineral. So, if these minerals could be made more economically for the quality and grade, makes a lot of difference. But look at this. You get a 40% markup for selling these minerals. Really, the folks that make the profit, not the lab. There's more markup, and that 40% markup that you make in selling them than much more, many times over what the lab makes. If they only make 2 or 3 cents a bottle, selling them in dozens and gross lots and so forth, that amounts to something at the end of the day. I mean, speaking about net. But you've got in the neighborhood, we'll say, of 25% net after the capitalization, investment, time, and so forth. But a total of 40% gross, it hasn't cost you a thing to put them in a bottle, hasn't cost you a thing to store them, hasn't cost you a thing in the world to buy the mineral by the ton, or so forth, that has to be refined in order to put them together. So there's a lot to it. You get what you pay for. And if a person doesn't do what you tell him, then he's just going to be your patient more often and a lot longer. So some good comes out of everything for somebody. Do you want to say something?
Dr. Reed, for those of you that are not familiar with what goes into some of the chemicals that make up the different vitamins and products, recently I went to Japan to bring back some equipment, check on some for Dr. Reeves and also some for a doctor in California. So we priced over there one of the grinding machines that is used to put the capsules together. And for the grinding machine itself, you can look anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000 for the machine to grind the stuff into a powder. This doesn't do anything that has to do with putting it together. So when one looks at the contents of the bottle, I found that there are a lot of cracks in there that I had never discovered until this last week. And when you start putting these into perspective, the cost of things comes down in a big rush.
The capsule filling machines alone is nearly $17,000 just for the machines alone. And then you have to buy these capsules by the 100,000, and you've got your money tied up in investments and hundreds of thousands of capsules, and it just takes, there's just a lot more to it than it seems like. It does seem like a lot of money, but good health is cheap at any price. At any price, it's cheap. When you have good health, you are rich. And I don't care how much money you got, whenever you don't have any health, you are very poor. So remember that this is the difference. If people think they can make some money by going into the vitamin and mineral business, they've got another thought coming. They'd make a lot more money in selling them at a 40% markup. That's where the profit is. It's not in the manufacture of the mineral, it's in the markup. The 40% that's required by health food stores and others to sell the minerals. And of course, health food stores have a pretty hard job too, because they've got to carry a lot of minerals, a lot of vitamins, and a lot of materials and things, and they got the rent, the light, the water, the health, and everything else. It's kind of hard sometimes to make the ends at 40%. Any health food store that can start and pay a net profit within 3 years is doing real good, just real good. So try to remind people of this whenever they buy the vitamins and minerals. And one reason that most people don't get the result that you expect to see is because they're not doing what we have taught you to teach them. So you may try it. I know there's one person that's going down to the health food store and bought dolomite and bought capsules and filling his own by hand and selling it. Well, the amount of time that it takes to fill those capsules and put them in a bottle and a label and then no number and then no legal advice and nothing to protect you, you're asking for a ticket for the penitentiary. You're really working for it. You just can't, you're taking every shortcut you know. So it takes a lot of money whenever you get into the vitamin and mineral business, besides putting the vitamin and mineral into the bottle. There's a lot more to it than that. And unless you are a tip-top physicist and are ready to be pinned to the wall by some HEW smart aleck, you better stay out of the vitamin and mineral business. Because unless you really know your chemistry or have somebody that really knows their minerals and physics, they'll pin you to a wall. So I'm not trying to discourage you, but I have been in it now 50 years, and I know something about vitamins and minerals and manufacturing. And I'm not in it anymore. I give the entire organization lock, stock, and barrel away to a church. I do not receive any dividends or any money therefrom. I do not need it. I do not want it. And the entire returns goes into Christian work and it is for health that I work and nothing else. So I just put this extra in for heat up measure and running over. One of the great problems today in our foods is that there's not enough fiber. And the lack of fiber in our diet is cellulose. You get cellulose out of fiber, the outer coating of cellulose. The gastric juices takes a certain amount of gelatin from the outer coating of cellulose, which prevents constipation. One of the greatest causes of constipation is not enough fiber in the diet. The second is not enough cellulose. Some people said that a colon problem is the first problem of ill health, the first sign of ill health. It may be, but before that there's a liver that's not functioning normally. And the liver also needs cellulose and dextrose and many of the other sugars and so forth necessary to keep the system oily. Also, the liver manufactures over 6 billion different enzymes necessary to maintain and keep life healthy. The primary substance the liver uses are calciums, and the next one is oxygen. And from those two basic materials, I don't mean the chemical basis, but primary substances, the liver starts the manufacture of over 6 billion different enzymes during our lifetime. All of them are not needed at all times. But a baby needs a whole lot less than an adult. But when you become an adult, you don't need those that you used when you were a baby or an infant. So whenever you start working on a malady, start working with the liver. Lemon juice is nature's own hydrochloric acid. And there are a few people that are allergic to lemon juice, but the liver can convert that lemon water, lemonade, into some 6 billion different enzymes with less chemical change than any other natural substance known to man. Whenever a person is allergic to lemonade or lemon water, then you need to use other vegetable juices to substitute until you can get the system back into order. And you also need to try out various kinds of calciums. Yes.
Can you give us some information there on relationships of lemon versus vegetable juices as far as quantity is concerned? How much vegetable juice would we use in a day versus how much lemon we would ordinarily use?
This is something, how much vegetable juice versus lemon juice should you use during a day? This is a variable according to the individuals and the time of year and so forth, and it's something that's going to have to be worked out on a trial and error basis. But the main thing when a person cannot take lemonade is to take distilled water and then take some fruit juices throughout the day on the half hour and go by a trial and error method on that, because our vegetable juices today are not stable enough to predict what can happen, or how good they are, or how poor they are. So you're just going to have to go by the numbers in that. Just go by the numbers and let it lead you. Now, if a person has low blood sugar, carrot juice is excellent. But if they have high blood sugar, then they better use bean juice, celery juice, cucumber juice, and so forth, cabbage juice, and so forth. But if they have a low blood sugar, then you can use the various fruit juices. So go by the numbers to guide you and let you find your way. Also, we have the subject of emphysema. A lot of people, or most people today do have emphysema, or some emphysema. Now, emphysema is a dehydrated cell. Emphysema is a cell that is losing moisture because of the oxidation. And therefore, in a cell that does not get enough oxygen to the liver to properly digest your foods, each thing being weaker and weaker and weaker, diluting the gastric juices more and more, and losing more and more reserve energy, slowly going down the hill to start with like a snowball. But the farther you get down the hill, the bigger it gets and the faster it goes. So these juices that you need to take should slowly rebuild this deficiency in mineral in your system, providing you have enough oxygen from your liver to assimilate it. Now, the reason you have emphysema to start with is not because of the smog in the air. It's not because you smoke cigarettes or a pipe. It is because there is a deficiency in calciums and enough drinking water and enough variety in your foods. Keep those and you can live to be a ripe old age and smoke some cigarettes every day and also live in a lot of smog. But if you live in a lot of smog and smoke cigarettes, then you're not going to get enough oxygen in your liver. Next thing you'll know, you'll have emphysema, and the next thing you know, you've got the cancer you've been working on for the last 20 years in the throat or in somewhere else in the system. You really got it. It took you 20 years to do it, or you've got asthma so bad you can't hardly breathe, because you didn't get enough oxygen into the liver to assimilate the calciums, and therefore you really have a problem. So asthma is caused because of a lack of calcium, because of a lack of oxygen. Maybe and maybe not a cause of a lack of oxygen. So cause and effect is what counts. But the many, many maladies that can strike because of one deficiency is rather astounding to see how many things can happen. As I said this morning, before this class is over, you'll get a copy of some of the computer numbers and the maladies they represent, plus some of the symptoms in the body that this malady has to, or may be used to classify the malady. The medical books say once you have emphysema, it is incurable. That is not true. That medical book simply means this, that there's no drug that will cure emphysema, but there are diets that will cure emphysema, providing you get to it in time. So the foods that you need for emphysema are foods rich in mineral content. Actually, all of them should be taken 2-3 times a day, and men call 2 twice a day for long periods of time for people who are deficient in minerals and have emphysema. So do not forget to put people on emphysema or with emphysema on those 2 minerals for long periods of time, a year, 2 years, or 3 years. So it's also vital for people to get enough oxygen in the air. And there are people with emphysema that moisture in the air bothers them terrifically, and there are others that it doesn't seem to do any harm to. But no drug can benefit emphysema patients, only give them some temporary relief. So try to keep in mind the cause of maladies and begin to work on it. And when you see the cause and know the malady, then you'll know somewhere about where the numbers would be in the equation that you're running. You need not try to plan for those numbers to be anywhere, but once you see those numbers are where they are, then you'll be very easy to know that the deficiency is brought about because the element that is not responding is composed chiefly of that element. We have not talked about salt today, and this is in review. Salt. 600 to 700 micromoles of salt in the urine is normal, and above this is abnormal. And the higher it goes, the more cholesterol forms in the arteries and veins, and the more diverticulitis appears in the arteries and veins, and also in the intestinal tract. I have just visited Dr. D. Wells in California, and he is giving enemas by a special colonic machine that he's invented that sells for $4,000. But we hope to have one on display the next time for the next class. And it puts oxygen into the colon, a very, very small amount. This oxygen has decreased the size of the colon the quickest I've ever seen. He is now getting the same results, actually proven by X-ray, in 6 weeks to 2 months. It's taking me 8 months to a year to do. It's absolutely fabulous what has happened. Small ulcers and diverticulitis is an enlarged colon, and then too small in other places. And you just can't believe it till you see it, what is happening with this oxygen that's introduced. Now, if you have a colonic machine, don't just go and stick oxygen into it. It can be easily done. But if you get too much oxygen in there, you can get into serious trouble. So just be careful about it, because it must be put in correctly and in the right amounts, and the water must be kept flowing, and it must be gotten out pretty well and turned off before the diverticulitis, before the colonic is finished, so as to get the best results from the diverticulitis. And great things are going to be accomplished in the next few months, a few years, with your work and your benefit. I've been working now for a number of years with trying to get oxygen into the system so that it would be effective without dehydration. It has a habit of dehydrating everything that comes in contact with it, all flesh and all matter, in too strong a form. But he seems to have solved the problem in giving a colonic with tremendous volumes of water. One of the greatest factors that he found that was quite a surprise to him, but which to me was the actual one that I was working on, was that people that had hardening of the arteries of the brain that were senile to the point that they couldn't walk, they couldn't talk, they were in very serious shape. It has brought them back to a perfect mentality in just a couple of months, and a tremendous amount in even 2 weeks. So people that could not even talk, it almost reverted to a vegetable. It has rejuvenated them something terrific. And it has been absolutely remarkable what this introduction of oxygen has done to colonics. Also, the salt. The higher the salt, and the longer the period of time, the greater amount of cholesterol that is formed in the blood vessels. A correlation now between your salt reading, and we'll say the salt reading of 30, the salt reading of 30, and also between your ureas over here. There's a correlation. Now, this is a salt, and these are salts. So you're right here, you have three different kinds of salts. Now, this one may represent up to 48 different kinds of salts. There are people that do not eat any sodium chloride or any other form of salt in their diet, in which the salt remains way too high much of the time, very high much of the time, because their gastric juices of the liver cannot prevent the natural organic salts from forming a salt and remaining in the system.